The void stretched infinitely in every direction, a vast unbroken sea of darkness, punctuated only by the cold, indifferent stars. And amidst it all, drifted the smallest ship ever to challenge the titanic forces of the galaxy, a vessel so insignificant in mass and form that it should not have even registered as a threat. And yet, it moved with purpose through the abyss, its hull battered, its energy reserves nearly depleted, but its mission burned bright within the mind of its lone occupant, a pilot whose name had long since been erased from the annals of history, yet whose actions were about to reshape the course of existence for all who lived beneath the rule of the Dominion. Ahead loomed the Galactic Dreadnought, a fortress of destruction, an engine of war, whose presence alone dictated the fate of civilizations. It had reduced entire worlds to ruin in mere moments, its cannons capable of ripping apart moons, and its shields impervious to the most advanced weapons known to any race in the cosmos. Its command bridge spanned kilometers, its crew numbering in the millions, an unshakable pillar of the Dominion's rule, an indomitable symbol of power. And yet, the smallest ship in the void approached it without hesitation. The pilot gripped the control yoke with hands worn by years of battle, their knuckles whitening as they pushed the ship forward, knowing that even detection would mean instant annihilation. But they had prepared for this moment, every calculation accounted for, every movement planned in the finest detail. The ship was nothing more than a speck of dust against the Dreadnought sensor array, its form nearly invisible against the cosmic backdrop. But stealth would not be enough for what had to be done. The pilot's mind raced through every contingency, through every possible scenario where they could fail, but the result was always the same. If they failed, the Dominion would remain unchallenged. The war would end in ruin for the free peoples of the galaxy, and there would be no one left to stand against the unstoppable advance of tyranny. They could not fail. They activated the ship's final reserves, the energy core pulsing weakly. As the engines surged, the distance between them and the Dreadnought closing. At an impossible speed, they felt the weight of the moment pressing upon their chest, a crushing certainty that this was the only chance, the only sliver of hope left for the countless billions who depended on this one moment, on this one act of defiance against the inevitable. The Dreadnought's sensors flared. Alarms rang through the endless halls of the war machine. As it finally detected the incoming ship, too small, too fast to be a standard projectile, too deliberate to be debris. And for the first time in centuries, the bridge of the Galactic Dreadnought was filled with something close to concern the commander. A being of unfathomable experience and cruelty turned its many eyes toward the incoming speck, its mind analyzing, calculating, dismissing, and then, in a moment of rare hesitation, reconsidering. Weapons primed, shields flared to life, and the vast machine of war prepared to swat away this insignificant challenge. But the pilot knew what had to be done. They had spent lifetimes preparing. They had sacrificed everything to reach this moment. They activated the singularity drive, an experimental technology deemed too dangerous for even the Dominion to harness. And as the ship accelerated beyond the realm of physics, beyond the constraints of space and time itself, it became something else. It became an idea of rebellion, an idea of defiance, an idea that no power, no matter how vast or insurmountable, could remain unchallenged forever. The smallest ship in the void ceased to exist as a mere vessel, and instead became the embodiment of all who had fought, suffered, and perished under the Dominion's rule. And in that final instant, before impact, before oblivion, it whispered through the fabric of existence, itself a message to all those who still had the will to resist. And then, the impossible happened. The Galactic Dreadnought trembled, a structure that had never known fear, that had never faced an opponent it could not crush, felt its reality twist its form, waver, its shields, meant to withstand the fury of stars, flicker and fail as the smallest ship in the void ceased to be a mere object, and instead became an event, an uncontainable force of nature, a singularity of resistance, punching through the heart of tyranny, and in that moment, the war that had seemed lost found its first true victory. Across the galaxy the message spread, whispered through the stars. Carried by the pulse of an impossible event that defied reason, logic, and expectation, hope surged through the hearts of those who had given up, those who had believed there was no future beyond the Dominion's rule. Because something greater than destruction had occurred, something greater than victory itself had emerged. A miracle in the void. And the fight was far from over. The Dominion reeled from the loss of its greatest weapon, confusion. Spread through its ranks, as its admirals and warlords struggled to comprehend the impossible, the unstoppable machine of conquest, suddenly felt its own mortality, and across the stars, the embers of rebellion ignited into flames. Worlds that had long suffered under Dominion rule now saw a weakness, saw that resistance was not futile, and as fleets rose in defiance, as warriors gathered in the shadow of the fallen Dreadnought, a new chapter in history began. The pilot had become more than a mere soldier. They had become a legend. Their sacrifice had become a rallying cry across the galaxy. And though their name had been erased, their actions would never be forgotten. Because now, the war was no longer about survival. Now the war was about freedom, and the Dominion would soon learn that the will of the free could never be crushed for as long as one ship, no matter how small, no matter how fragile, dared to stand against the darkness. The light of hope would never fade.